this video we're going to look at domain, range and interval notation. Basically, the domain is the possible x values that are shown by the function, and the range is the possible y values. And interval notation is the way that we represent what those values are. So if we have a look at this example here, what we'll notice is as we come out from the origin, the graph doesn't exist through here. So we don't have any line showing up there. But once we get to this point here, and as we keep moving along the x-axis, we see that we have got a line for the graph in all of that region. So what this area here is called is the domain of that function. All right, so if we are actually having a look down to see what that value is from there, so that's actually going to be 3. And if we actually had a look across to see what our y value is here, it's 2. So same thing along our y-axis, we see that the line starts here, and as we move up the axis, we've got the line for all of those values. So on our y-axis, what we're referring to is the range. And in this case that we can see, the range starts at 2 and keeps going above. Before we go any further, I'll just point out a few features of our lines. The little arrow means that the graph is going to continue on in that direction. However, we'll note on the other end of the line, in this case, we've just got a point. So that means that the line doesn't keep continuing off to the left here, it actually stops there. Now, when you have a look at some different graphs, you'll notice that some have an enclosed point, like this one, and some have an open point. If the point is enclosed, that means that the value is included. If that were an open circle, it would mean that that value isn't included in the domain and range. So if we come back to see how we use interval notation to represent the domain and range, firstly we'll look at domain. So what we can see by having a look at the graph is that x doesn't have any values that are less than 3. We can see it only has values that are greater than 3. So we use this little symbol to represent greater than, and we notice that that point is enclosed, so it's included, so it's greater than or equal to 3. Okay, and so the full way we want to represent this using interval notation is x, and we'll put it in curly brackets. Now the same thing with range. So we're going to go y is, and in this case y is greater than or equal to 2. So we can see that we've only got values on our graph showing up here when y is bigger than 2. Just having a look at another example, if we've got a graph that looks like this, we can see that our highest y value is at the maximum on the graph, so we can tell by the coordinates here that that is at 1. And we can also, so the way we can write that is that, I'll do that a little bit neater. Y, in this case we know that the maximum value of y on the graph is going to be 1, because we can see the turning point in the graph. We're not going to have any lines of the graph above that point. So y is always going to be less than or equal to 1. Now in this case, if we have a look at where we have x values, we can see, well, we currently have x values for the whole section of the graph we can see, but because we've got an arrow on each end, that just means the line is going to keep going on in both directions, which means that we can have all values of x. And the way that we represent this in writing our domain is we write x and we just say x is